open this evening with a little joke. We are the Dangerous Brothers.
And I can announce exactly what we are going to do for the next 5 years.
But when I fell in love, Mum, I didn't know she was a woman.
I think violence is extremely naughty.
We paid for 2. Raw sex. What are you?
But I reckon as a mainstream comedian, I have a...
My name is Stavros. That's our name.
Ben Elton.
He's dead good, isn't he?
30 years ago this month, I did my very first stand-up gig, right here, in this strip club in the heart of Soho. Rik Mayall and Adrian Edmondson were already on the bill, as were French and Saunders. In fact, Jenny and Dawn let me share their dressing room because the boys wouldn't make any room. I didn't get paid, but I did all right, and I got 15 quid the next night. It was February 1981, and I was on my way. My name's Ben Elton, and this is my look at comedy in the 1980s.
Ben Elton, ladies and gentlemen. Ben Elton. He's dead good, isn't he? Isn't he good? Oh, he's very good, isn't he? Oh, very good.
He's not very popular with me, but I suppose working class people find him amusing.
He's madder than Mad Jack McMad, the winner of last year's Mr. Madman competition.
Tonight, I'm going to guide you through the comedy of the 1980s, a decade in which comedy changed a great deal, turning its back on styles which have been popular for decades.
The Irish have just invented a new parachute. Opens on impact.
Finding alternative things to laugh about and new styles in which to do it.
Alternative lifestyle? Ha! Your man's alternative is Channel 4!
Comedy was as exciting as rock and roll. It was fantastic.
This is what they want! Anarchy! Yeah!
What I liked about it was it seemed to be anarchic more than anything else.
That is the first sensible thing you have said all day!
That's comedy that's big, it's stupid, it's surreal.
I'm the Queen, and I want bottoms in Britain.
You silly old picnic rug, we've all got bottoms in Britain.
They were just being anti-establishment, and it sort of gave you hope for the future. We weren't all doomed.
Nonsense! That would have been a hard hit.
It kind of booted out sort of lazy, racist, kind of rubbish, dated comedies.
Okay, well, heavy metal, okay? Heavy metal, heavy metal, heavy metal! Have I said it enough?
It wasn't that there were alternative comedians, it was that there was an alternative audience. That's really the point.
Ladies and gentlemen, I feel it's time to deal with a certain debate that seems to rage in the press. They want to know the difference between alternative and mainstream comedy. Now, I don't understand, but I reckon as a mainstream comedian, I have a duty to look at this alternative business and see what it's about. To assist me in my examination of 80s comedy, which started for many in the dingy clubs of Soho, I've enlisted the help of some of the biggest stars of the decade. Victoria Wood, Lenny Henry, Harry Enfield, and of course, Rik Mayall.
I understand that your programme's got a viewer.
This is the pilot episode of The Young Ones. It says Jan 1981. Fuck. The audience for Loads of Money went mega. It went colossal. It became everybody.
Because he became the kind of spokesperson a bit for people against the student hippie squatter wankers.
I don't have very much money, I'm single, I can't afford to go abroad, I don't make friends easily, what can I do?
Your agent asked you to show me your
I
legs?
went to be interviewed and he said, yes, darling, I love the songs and everything. Let's see your pins. He said, well, it's very important, darling, for panto.
And did you?
Will you please welcome Jimmy Tarbuck?
I'll also be meeting the man who was very much at the top of the showbiz tree in those days and find out how he felt about us new comedians muscling in on the act.
That's what I like, a brainwashed audience.
I recall the quote, Jimmy Tarbuck has said Ben Elton's as funny as tax, which I thought was a funny line.
I wish I'd have said that. It's a great line.
To get an idea of how what was known as alternative comedy developed, you have to have a feel for the social context in which it emerged. This is Brixton, a place which in the early 80s was synonymous with urban social problems. Racial tension, high unemployment, and a growing estrangement between the police and the community they served. Something had to give, and on April the 11th, 1981, it did. The Brixton riots in some ways reflected the broader problems that Britain faced at the start of the 1980s.
You know, The police are doing a very difficult job in the face of some appalling violence.
It was a gloomy time because the Labour government had petered to a halt in 1979. The Thatcher government had come in with quite an abrasive cure to those problems, which led quite rapidly to high unemployment. There was a big reaction to that, people literally rioting on the street in a way which I don't think we'd had for quite some time. So naturally, many of us turned to comedy as a way of responding to it and making a few jokes about it.
Last summer in London, I was looking for a place to live, and obviously I wanted somewhere with a nice class of riot, you know what I mean? Like, ended up with a burnt-out Cortina on the Edgware Road. I've been there a week, I found 6 coppers hiding in the boots.
I denounce violence, I deplore violence, I think violence is extremely naughty.
But it wasn't just riots, we had strikes too. It's a wonder anything got done at all.
The establishment had won. Absolutely big old thudding footfall on the face of Britain from the right. And everything was kind of fighting against that.
There was a lot of depression in the 80s. You had the miners' strike, you had quite a bit of poverty, and the general rule, I am told, is that comedy does very well in times of recession and depression.
It seemed like the whole of Britain was rioting that summer. I can still remember the smell of the smoke drifting across the Thames as I emerged from Leicester Square tube station, bowels dissolving at the prospect of my midnight gig. There were only 2 venues in those days, the Comic Strip and the Comedy Store, both in strip clubs, and I compared them both that summer. Soho was very different in those days. It wasn't nice like this. No, it was cheap and tatty and actually slightly intimidating.
My name's Alexei Sayle, and I'm actually an alternative comedian. I'm not funny. The thing is, I'm non-racist, I'm non-sexist, so if you don't laugh at me, you're a fucking fascist shitbag. All right. OK, Martin Borman's stag party, OK.
The Soho venues early on were all in sort of erotic review bars and things like that, which made it really exciting, I think, made it very strange. So you'd have your kind of Islington Time Out crowd queuing outside while Japanese businessmen came out.
Alternative comedy sort of created its own audience. Because there wasn't a comedy audience in, say, London for young people going out, the way there is now.
We'd like to open this evening with a little joke. A joke! Knock, knock! Who's there? Open the door! Open the... What the fuck are you talking about? Open the door! Who?
The Comedy Store was here in Mead Street, in this building, in a horrible little sweaty 3rd floor room to which the only access was a tiny lift through those doors, which we, the acts, had to share with the punters. It was also one of the very few venues in Soho that had a late-night licence, so you can imagine not everybody was there for the comedy, which often made for a very unpleasant evening indeed.
This Irishman... They're asking for more. Yeah, they're asking for more. They're the ones who come here for their 200 hours community service.
Open mic nights were really, really excruciating because you had to get up on the stage and grab the attention of this audience, most of whom would only come in because it was late night drinking and it was a bit of a hip place to go. I mean, it's very handy just off Dean Street.
The thing to do was to be, well, for me anyway, it was just stand there and interact with the audience, tell a few jokes, banter with the crowd. I could do, a few minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour of that as part of an evening, and I did it from time to time. I was slightly reluctant sometimes, but I generally enjoyed it once I got there.
The Comic Strip was based in Brewer Street in Soho, where Peter Richardson had gathered together the most talented players on the alternative comedy circuit, namely Nigel Planer, who performed with Peter as the Outer Limits, Alexei Sayle, who was the first compere, and Rik Mayall and Adrian Edmondson, otherwise known as the Dangerous Brothers.
Oh, he's got a headache! Oh, he's got a headache! That's very fucking convenient, isn't it? Yeah, couldn't we have now? What has he got, any arms? Or fuck all arms? Oh, so how's he going to press the buttons? Exactly!
What happened with the comic strip when it first started, it was a review. And they used to do 2 shows a night, Friday and Saturday night. It was always packed, a nice little theatre, the Boulevard Theatre above the Raymond Review Bar. Left for the tits, right for the gags.
We've got him, we've got him.
I joined a few months later after Rik had got me an audition. That first night, my act included a Ronald Reagan impression and a routine with a music box. To be honest, up to that point, I'd never even thought about doing stand-up.
I wanted to be a writer, you see, not a comedian. But this was Thatcher's Britain, don't forget, and as Norman Tebbit had said, you had to go where the work was. And there weren't a lot of writing jobs on offer at the DHSS where I'd signed on the previous autumn, which is how I ended up here, following on from the strippers. An inauspicious start, you might think, but within a year or two, everyone who was on the bill that night, Rik, Aid, Jenny Dawn, Nigel Planer, Pete Richardson, Alexei Sayle and myself, were all on the telly. Weren't we the lucky bastards? There's an enduring myth that the generation of comics that emerged in the 1980s were all highly politicised lefties who did nothing but sneer at Mrs Thatch. But in fact, the general vibe was more culturally anarchic than specifically left-wing. To my mind, the only political principles that truly united this so-called alternative generation were social ones. A general awareness of sexism and racism and homophobia, and the idea that those things had no place in comedy. Now, that might all sound a little bit pious and righteous in our splendidly postmodern, ironic era, but believe me, at the time, there was a real case to answer.
Well, I gave in this bird once. He said, "You've only got a small organ, haven't you?" He said, "Yes, but it's never played in a cathedral before." You Japanese never fucking laugh, do you? Hey, you never laugh. We've not forgot Pearl Harbor, pal. Don't you fucking worry about that. It was a shit house trick, that was. Sat there, he can't wait to go home and make on the Datsun. You look a nice young fella. Go and piss on that Jap. Bastards.
Those jokes didn't sound genuine anyway. They were just things. They were jokes because that's what people made jokes about.
Not many people of that generation admired the likes of Jim Davidson and Bernard Manning. So it was simple. It's like, well, I don't want to do that comedy. Let's do something different. Ah, it's alternative.
Right. Got a couple of poems here. I don't know if any of you are into poetry at all. Shut up!
There was definitely a generational shift going on. We were finding different targets for our comedy and the emphasis was more on youth. In fact, Rik Mayall and Lisa Mayer had just approached me to join them in writing the sitcom which was to become The Young Ones.
Right, Neil, I'm going to give you 3 seconds to make supper, starting now! 3 seconds? 1! 2!
What do you fancy, Viv?
3! Where's my supper?
Well, it's not quite finished yet, actually. You know, it's not ready.
Oh, that's right, Neil, yes! Lounge around.
So, Rik, here we are, and it is very, I think it's very appropriate that we're meeting in a pub because my memory of The Young Ones is that it was created in a pub, but we're having tea.
We're having tea.
Out of deference to our age.
I understand that your programme's got a viewer, so...
Yes,
nice
cheers to the viewer. So can you just remember about the process of how The Young Ones struggled onto the TV?
What I do remember is thinking, this is a brilliant idea. If I get me and Aid together, because we've got the characters already, we've got Rik and Sir Adrian Dangerous, and we've got the hippie, Neil, and we've got this very smooth, cool guy. OK, got 2 double acts, put them together, put the compere in as a landlord, and we got a Scouse landlord. That's Alexei. But I just couldn't write material for all of that. So I thought, I need a genius. I know, Ben. Yes, the Godfather of comedy.
The Godfarty, I think.
The Godfarty.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Godfarty. The Godfarty.
Yeah.
This is 30 years ago, and I remember that. The Godfarty. So I call up you and say, Ben, give me 1 billion gags, please, and you can get into showbiz.
What do you do of an evening if you're a young adult and can't go drinking in pubs? Now, what I think is that if the kids are united, we will never be divided. Did you see that? Did you? The voice of youth. They're still wearing flared trousers.
I can remember you ringing up and saying, come meet me in the pub. There was you, there was Lisa who was also going to be writing it, and we discussed this idea and put it together that night. And that very night, this was typed. I went home.
This is it.
This is it. This is the young one. This is the pilot episode. This is the pilot episode of The Young Ones. What did you say there? It says,
This is how old we are nowadays,
It says Jan 1981.
Fuck. The Young Ones, pilot episode, first draft, January 1981. I'm practically shaking.
And it's, well, come on, let's read a bit. Read the first, see if you do, let's see. Hang on,
Okay.
Here we go. All right.
This is the original.
Yes, this was it. Okay, so Rick is dancing, right.
Rick
okay.
is dancing. That was brilliant. Pity about Cliff Richard.
I'll be Neil.
What about him?
He's holding the lentils.
What? What about Cliff Richard? Are you trying to be funny? Because if you are, I think it's in pretty poor taste, that's all. I'm not a fridge, you know.
First gag. Nobody got it, but it was fabulous. And I remember you saying to me in the pub, he's the sort of bloke who wants to insult people but gets it totally wrong. Like he'd say something like, I'm not a fridge. Yeah. And I just thought, that is golden. And down it went.
That was a great new version of the Young One.
That was brilliant! Shame about Cliff Richard.
What about him?
What?
What about Cliff Richard?
You trying to be funny? Because if you are, I think it's in pretty poor taste, that's all. I'm not a fridge, you know.
Weird, eh? I better get back to the lentil casserole before I get disorientated.
How much do you think we could get for this?
Nothing, I don't think. I mean, with all my farty little writing.
Yeah, you've been doodling over it in
I
Ben
have.
Elton writing. It's quite obviously the one that I wrote on my own. And you've put little Ben Doodles on it, claiming it's yours.
I put my little doodle on it. Exactly. So, anyway, we got...
That script, Ben Elton, that you wrote in the middle of the night in the toilet has changed the face of British comedy.
Felicity Treacle Kendall and Richard sugar-flavoured snob bras! What do they do now? Chocolate bloody buttnuts, that's what! They're nothing but a couple of reactionary stereotypes confirming the myth that everyone in Britain is a lovable middle-class eccentric, and I hate them!
The Young Ones changed television, I think. You get to a point where you don't want to sit with your family and watch the sitcoms anymore. And there were no... The schedule wasn't infested with dreadful soap operas then, you know. There were lots of sitcoms, and it was all the better for it. But they were pre-Watershed. There wasn't a Watershed then, but that's what they'd be called now. But the Young Ones appeared, and it changed comedy.
Well, you can just shut up, Vivian. You can just about blummin' well shut up. Because if you've got anything horrid to say about Felicity Kendall, you can just about blummin' well say it to me first, all right?
If you've been with somebody, you go, what's this? What are they going to do now? And then they started rowing and hitting each other and shouting and ranting. Plus, it was loaded with all the political references.
It's a revolution!
What do you mean, revolution?
Revolution! Blood runs, flags wave. Come on, everybody, throw down your tools and throw up a barricade. Come on, run into the Winter Palace. Run into the Winter Palace and stand on the tables, waving bits of paper at each other.
Well, The Young Ones it was really exciting because I guess I must have been 14 or 15 when it came along, and I went to boarding school, and in my boarding house, Pemberley House, the whole thing ground to a halt at 9 o'clock to watch that on BBC Two. I think on Thursdays, I can't remember, but everyone watched it, and it was a thing we all had to sort of share it was a communal experience as well, weirdly.
Fooled you! Thought you'd been really clever, didn't you? But you fell right into my trap. Now you can sit on the rickety chair. Oh, yeah! Oh, yeah!
We are the first generation who lived its entire lives
watching
with
TV.
television.
Yeah.
And we were the first ones, so that is the explosion that was the 80s. Where so much of it was telly.
The funny thing is, we were given it, you've broken all the boundaries. No, we're in a house with a sofa, just like Terry and June, you know. We're a domestic sitcom. And in fact, some farty critic actually came up with the idea that it was a nuclear family, that Mike was the dad, Neil was the mother, you were the daughter, and Aid was the son, and it was a traditional unit. But whatever it was a traditional sitcom.
We never clean the toilet, Neil! That's what being a student is all about! No way, Harpic! No way, Dot! All that blue loo scene is for squares. One thing's for sure, Neil. When Cliff Richard wrote Wired for Sound, no way was he sitting on a clean lavatory.
Why was it called The Young Ones? And it's because of Cliff. Yeah. Because poor Cliff, one of the great genius things about... well, he wasn't a punk. He'd been around for 30 years before punk, 25, pretty much like we are now, talking about alternative comedy. And so it was very uncool to think Cliff was great if you're a Sex Pistols fan. If you're a great admirer of the Sex Pistols who thinks Cliff's better.
Oh, Cliff! Sometimes it must be difficult not to feel as if you really are a cliff when fascists keep trying to push you over it. Are they the lemmings, or are you Cliff? Or are you Cliff?
All respect to Cliff. All respect to Cliff.
You can't mind-blow jobbing Cliff Richard. It's
That was in awe.
Oh, OK. Yeah, well, you would be in awe if you were giving Cliff a blowjob.
All respect.
Apparently, it's enormous.
I know, he's the man they call the tripod.
Yeah, exactly. They call him the tripod. Yeah. He doesn't need a mic stand. Just clips it on his knob.
That's how fast Ben. That's how fast Ben Elton is. Said Rick.
Still doing Cliff gags all these years on. Tell us, what were your favourite bits of The Young Ones?
I'll tell you what my favourite bits of The Young Ones. OK, they are these 3 moments. Cut.
And do you know why? Because we're young ones. Bachelor boys. Crazy, mad, wild-eyed, big-bottomed anarchists. Look out! Cliff!
Typical Rick, he only chose one clip, which happened to be the very last scene of the last series of The Young Ones, which incidentally we did with a real bus. You can see where your licence fee went in those days.
Phew! That was close!
While the BBC was making The Young Ones, something very exciting was happening in commercial television. Britain was about to get its 4th television channel, cunningly titled Channel 4, and they were going to have a very big impact on 80s comedy. We'll see how they started after the break.
Oh, wait, I know. TV time. Yeah. Oh, God, what are they doing closing down? It's only 9:30.
That's BBC One, Rick.
Oh, right.
Not this band again. They're always on. Crap. What about some Hawkwind or Marillion?
Yeah, shut up, you fascist Tories. No one tells me what time to go to bed.
Go to bed, Spotty.
Yeah, that's better.
In a funny way, we owed The Young Ones not just to the BBC, but also to its emerging opposition. Because in 1982, the brand new Channel 4 was making the BBC very scared. You see, 25 years before Big Brother, Gawk's Fashion Fix and Celebrity Brat Camp, Channel 4 was cool, sophisticated, and definitely aimed at young adults.
To capture the youth market, Channel 4 turned to comedy and commissioned The Comic Strip Presents, a series of short comedy films principally by Peter Richardson and starring some of the artists with whom he'd founded the original club, including, of course, a very young French and Saunders. Their first starring role was in a parody of Enid Blyton's Famous Five. Not a radical target, but brilliantly done and very funny. It was called Five Go Mad in Dorset.
Peter Richardson had always wanted to make films, ever since he was a little boy.
Yes.
So he saw that group of people as a new little kind of Ealing comedy group. I think that's what he thought. He wanted to make little British films, and that's exactly what he did.
Rhubarb tart, my favourite, with lashings of cream.
You've had 4 helpings already, Dick.
Thanks, Anne. You really are a proper little housewife. Not like George. She still thinks she's a boy.
I think it's stupid being a girl. I wish I was a boy.
Really, George? It's about time you gave up thinking you're as good as a boy. I mean, Anne is just a girl, but she doesn't mind, do you, Anne?
Well, I absolutely do mind, actually.
Steady on.
We would shoot from 6 o'clock in the morning till about 3 o'clock in the morning, and then go to bed, get up and start again. But nobody
Crew were our
cared.
friends. We were all the same age.
Yeah.
Everybody was fancying everybody else. We didn't want to be anywhere else. This is the only place we wanted to be. You're with your best mates, snogging a lot of boys, drinking a lot, and filming as long as we ever could. Sometimes we
Away
sleep on
from
the
home.
set.
Yeah, people would say,
That's how much
oh,
we
I
loved
thought
it.
go about sleep on the set.
Gosh, we seem to be miles from anywhere.
Seems so isolated. I'm sure some pretty queer things go on around here.
Yes. Look over there. There's a man parachuting into the field.
So there is. Look.
Maybe it's a spy being dropped down into this desolate countryside. Or perhaps a deserter from the Air Force. That's even more likely.
Come on, let's find out.
It was parodic, it was pastiche, it was film. It was rather grand and amazing that these young people had a true film unit at their beck and call, not a TV studio. And because it was filmed, of course, it was all about those performers finding the difference between comedy in film and comedy in a television studio.
Another standout comic strip episode was Bad News Tour, a spoof documentary written by Adrian Edmondson concerning a heavy metal band on the road, which, just to set the record straight, preceded Christopher Guest's celebrated and also brilliant Spinal Tap by about 6 months.
Did they get it this time? What? And have they got another hair in the gate or what?
Shut up, then.
Hey?
I said shut up. Oh, Christ, shall we go again?
No, I'll go with this one.
What is crap?
No, we can cut the beginning off. Just mic working. Hello, 1, 2.
Yes.
1, 2.
Dan, yes, it's working. Look, we're wasting a lot of film here.
Okay, keep cool.
It was immensely disappointing when Spinal Tap came out because we were ahead of them. But, you know, we were a small half-hour British-made cheap programme and they were a whacking kind of Hollywood budget film and they kind of trounced us.
You can't beat a good live band. I mean, I just live for playing live. I mean, I'd do it for free if I didn't need the money.
Bad News, we couldn't get that together, and the characters in Bad News couldn't even, can't even do a handheld documentary right. That's what's so funny about us lot.
Hello, Spider. Brilliant joke, Dean.
Thanks. OK, it's working.
Does everybody know what they're doing?
Yes. I'd just say, heavy metal, top of the class, stuff the media up your arse.
Yeah, and don't forget to get your cock out, Dan.
Hey? Look, don't confuse him, Spider.
Hang on.
Oh, God, get it together, for Christ's
Look, will you
sake.
just stop shouting at me, Alan? It's beginning to get on my tits.
Piss off and stop calling me Alan.
All right, then Ajax, or whatever your new name is.
Don't you dare wind me
I think
up.
we've run out of film.
Aid and Nigel take music really seriously, so that it was like, guys, we've got to get this right. And there's Rik going, no, but I'm just going to show off. I can't really play the guitar. And Aid's going, no, please learn the chords, come on. And it was like, it did get, for a moment, it's like, we're a band. It's like, Peter Richardson would hate me for saying this, but I did all the drumming on that. He can't drum. And he wouldn't let me. He wouldn't let me in the same room when he was miming either. To me, it's unbelievable.
Stop! What's the matter? You're supposed to come in there, Colin.
All I'm asking, Vim, is that you let me sing just one number.
Yeah, I know. And I say you can't, OK?
Well, it's just not fair.
Look, this is my band, so it's fair.
All bands' tour buses had Bad News on. Because it was actually... It's not that it was funnier, but it was truer about most people's sort of experience of starting out in a band.
OK, we're heavy metal, OK? Heavy metal. Have I said it enough? We're heavy metal, OK?
It was completely inspiring because I was a first-year student at Oxford and here were these guys who seemed to come from another universe. They were just brilliant. They were everything I wanted to be, and I loved those guys like I've ever loved any band before or since. They were just heroic.
We're not basically a heavy metal band. We're a bit more subtle than that. Aren't we, Colin?
What?
We're a bit more subtle than that.
Yeah, we're subtle, but basically, we're heavy metal, aren't we?
Aid's body movement and his rhythm is because he's it's kind of visual music, but heavy metal music. But it can be many kinds. His character always comes from, I think, his character always comes from his movement, whereas mine always comes from my haircut. I never quite know whether I'm whether I'm an actor or a comedian or a comic actor or a funny, I'm somewhere in there, and you can just smell it and taste it when it's a job you want to do. Yeah, smell it and taste it. And if it smells and tastes of cash, that's the one for me. So if there are any writers out there, I'll do it. Currently available. Rik, currently available. Mayall.
Do any of you lot know Summer Holiday by Cliff Richard? Yeah. You hum it, I'll smash your face. Good morning, miss. Can I help you, son?
In the same year both the young ones and the comic strip were on the telly, Madness were topping the charts, and Britain was at war. The Falklands was, for Margaret Thatcher, a defining moment in her career. Victory over Argentina boosted her popularity, and the Tories won their second term in office in 1983.
She consciously, after about 2 or 3 years in office, in the wake of the Falklands War, adopted the posture of Queen Elizabeth I.
Britain is not prepared to be pushed around. We have ceased to be a nation in retreat.
Politics was easier to engage with in the 1980s, probably because the issues seemed so much clearer. The US and the Soviets, Thatcher and the miners, Murdoch and the printers. And kids were more engaged with the political process. Young people even knew the names of cabinet ministers, largely due to a brand new comedy satirical sketch show, which amazingly was on ITV. It was called Spitting Image.
Look, please, just give me a chance. Just give me a chance. I'm telling you, we were perfectly within our rights. Order! We were perfectly within our rights. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once and for all. Here's the Falklands. Here's the Belgrano, and here's the total exclusion zone.
When I was a student, I used to watch it, and it used to tell me what to feel about the news. It used to comfort us when things were going wrong. I remember the awful things happening with Libya, and you'd think, is this going to be the end of the world? And we'd say, let's watch Spitting Image and find out.
Spitting Image suddenly gave politics this kind of theatre of puppetry and caricature, which people hadn't seen before.
Based on the suggestions of the working policy committees, I have weighed up the options open to us for the next term, and I can announce exactly what we are going to do for the next 5 years.
Whatever we like!
Spitting Image ran for 12 years, radically changing the way politics and indeed politicians were perceived by the public. It became the satirical show of the decade, performed by some of the biggest comic voice talents around, such as Harry Enfield, Steve Coogan and Chris Barry.
I did a few characters, particularly at the beginning. I did Mr. What's my name again? Yes, the President. Mr. Ronald Reagan. My brain is missing.
El Salvador. No, don't tell me, Ed. I know. He's the big guy with the mustache.
No, Mr. President, El Salvador is a country.
I don't care what he's like, Ed, as long as he's not a commie.
No, sir. Our man's moderate.
Moderate? Is that like a commie, Ed?
No, sir. He's against Nicaragua.
Nicaragua. Now, he is the big guy with the mustache. Good old Nicky. I remember playing golf with him, Ed.
Mr. President, sir, Nicaragua's another country.
You don't like these guys very much, do you, Ed?
And of course, lovely Neil Kinnock. Yes, I did him. And Roy Spitting, Roy Hattersley. That was Steve Nallen who did him. But yes, no lovely babies and and you know, that sort of stuff.
I would like to condemn violence. I denounce violence. I deplore violence. I think violence is extremely naughty.
I thought Spitting Image was marvellous, especially in the early years. Good satire is an exaggeration of the truth. It can't be total fiction. It's got to take a truth and then spin it out and string it out and stretch it out until it becomes absurd, but funny because it's got a relationship to what really exists in reality.
Although I work a 20-hour day organising the affairs of Britain, nothing I do gives me greater pleasure than that simple domestic ritual of waking my husband with a pot of tea.
Come on, pigeon brain! We're gonna lie there all day!
Baroness Thatcher would never have acknowledged that she ever watched the programme. So far as other members of the Conservative Party were concerned, including members of the Cabinet, the severity of Norman Tebbit was something he probably enjoyed. This is a man, he may be the only one, who tried to fulfill the image portrayed of him in Spitting Image. I think he enjoyed it.
Lawson's fat, flabby and fat.
Not fat and flabby. But did you know that the word boring comes from the Latin...
Shut up! Herd sounds like a Dalek.
I do not! I do not!
And Baker's the smarmiest git this side of Leon Britain.
Weirdly, I remember a really weird bit from Spitting Image more than anything, which wasn't a funny bit. They did a pastiche of Every Breath You Take. It was called Every Bomb You Make. And it was a really serious, again, about nuclear Armageddon. And it was kind of, I remember thinking, you're in the middle of this comedy show and suddenly you were like, whoa. So it was quite right on. But I thought Spitting Image was extraordinary.
Every bomb you make, every job you take, every heart you break, every Irish wake, I've been watching you.
I remember when we started doing Spitting Image, you were hearing all sorts of stories of politicians, people from show business and sport and the media generally sort of saying, oh, I'm glad I'm not on Spitting Image, those dreadful puppets. But as the years and series rolled past, people were going, why aren't I on Spitting Image? For goodness sake, have I not got much of a personality to be on Spitting Image? And so people were actually desperate to be on Spitting Image, which is, of course, the ultimate measure of success of the programme.
I'm the Queen, and I want bottoms in Britain.
You silly old picnic rug. We've all got bottoms in Britain.
I haven't.
You have. I've told you a million times. You've got one.
No, I haven't.
Yes, you have, Ma. I mean, well, what about when you go to the loo?
I don't go to the loo. I'm the Queen.
I can't believe it's not still on. It was such a big show. That show really should still be on. I mean, we've never, ever been so bombarded with celebrities as we have now, and what a great way to take the piss out of them.
People say to me all the time, is Spitting Image going to come back? And you go, no way, because it's probably the most expensive programme, comedically, you could ever wish to make. And that's kind of why it was so fulfilling to watch, because you're entertained on every level, visually, the puppeteering, the acting, the sketch writing, you know, there's a lot of people coming together. But if someone says, right, we'll make a satirical show about the week with puppets, voice artists, caricaturists, or we do Mock the Week.
Yes, indeed. What time was it when the Chinaman went to the dentist?
2:30, I suspect. How moist and amusing, little Benji.
No, the Chinaman never went to the dentist.
No.
Because as a member of an ethnic minority in Thatcher's Britain, he could not afford to go for a checkup, which...
After a bit of a shaky start, Spitting Image turned into a colossal hit. And you really weren't anyone in the 1980s unless you had one of these. His name's Ben Elton. He'll see you after the break.
You know, the police are doing a very difficult job in the face of some appalling violence.
Spitting Image had a lot to satirise because the mid-1980s was very like the early 1980s, divided and troubled times. Unemployment was rising, rioting had returned to the streets of Britain, and the government was at war with the trade union movement. There wasn't a lot to laugh at, really.
I spy with my little eye something beginning with T.
Tank.
Yes.
One other niggling issue was the continuing threat of nuclear war between America and the Soviet Union. The government even produced short films telling us what to do in the event of a nuclear attack.
We grew up with nuclear weapons, didn't we? We were fearful of nuclear weapons in the 80s. You want to try living with that threat? Yeah, you kids, you don't know how lucky you are with terrorism. You want to try growing up with being told the Russians are going to kill you every day.
Everything was just, you just thought, well, we're all going to die pretty soon in a horrible way. And so I suppose comedy was kind of a nice escape from that, really. It was quite fatalistic and sort of cynical in the 80s, because I think everyone did just kind of assume we were all going to get blown up. So might as well have a laugh before that happens.
The United States does not start fights. We will never be an aggressor. We maintain our strength in order to deter and defend against aggression, to preserve freedom and peace.
But there was still plenty of comedy on the telly to take our minds off the disappearance of Britain's manufacturing base and all those Soviet missiles pointed at the American planes that were stationed in the UK. But not much of it could remotely be described as alternative, because you may think that 80s TV comedy was just a bunch of farty ex-students banging on about Mrs. Thatch, but try telling that to Cannon and Ball or Little and Large. They were the ones getting the ratings on a Saturday night.
Saturday night telly in the early 80s, I mean, you know, I was 17, maybe 18. It sort of was OK. You know, if I was sitting there with my mum, there was things that we could both laugh at.
What do you think this is, Sid? Play school? You're not going through the round window now, you know.
Well, at least I can get in through the round window. You couldn't.
Oh, claws away, children.
It was quite safe. It was samey, you know, and I think people liked that. You know, they liked turning on the telly and thinking, it's OK, I know what I'm going to get.
What's going on? Hey? What's going on? Is that you, Tom? Hey, of course it's me. You look like Frank Bruno gone pale with fright.
But, luckily for me, Saturday night television was about to change forever.
In 1985, Channel 4 piloted a TV show that was destined to change my life. It was to be an all-new variety comedy extravaganza on a Saturday and live, cunningly titled Saturday Live. For the first time, all the unknown comedians emerging from the embryonic alternative cabaret circuit were to get their break on TV. Now, I'd had a lot of success as a writer by that time, but I was relatively unknown as a comedian. In fact, me and my sparkly suit very nearly didn't make the cut at all.
It's live, it's Saturday, it's me, Lenny Henry. No, don't turn off.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are the Dangerous Brothers.
Every night I'm there, she knows
It was a mad experience. A, because it was live, and B, because there were so many different things tipped into the mix, so many different things going on.
I think Saturday Live was the first... It's probably the first time people had, outside of London, had seen so-called alternative comedy, you know. It was the first showcase of stand-up that was different.
I got on a train, on the Underground. My first paranoid dilemma. Do I tell a bloke to put his fag out, because you're not allowed to smoke on the Underground, and shall I tell him to or not, you know? And in the end, I think, no, personal freedom. I won't oppress him. I won't tell him to put his fag out. Personal freedom, live and let live. The fact that he was 8'6" and had I am a bastard tattooed on his forehead had nothing to do with it.
It was worlds apart from the old way of doing comedy on television, which is comedian walks on stage, goes, hi, I'm here, walks up and down, tells a few jokes, audience react, applause at the end, go off. And now you had Saturday Night Live and then Friday Night Live, which there were sketches in, people all overlapped, you know, things were of all different lengths. It was just so much more anarchic.
A lot of people have been saying to me, you know, why do a live show? In fact, my brain's saying it to me now. Why are you doing a live show? You know what happened the last time. Can't tell you what my bum's doing, and...
So, Len, one of the turning points in my career that changed my life was, of course, Saturday Live. I ended up the host. Now, I seem to recall that you kind of kicked off Saturday Live. Can you tell us a bit about the pilot of Saturday Live and where it came from and what was trying to happen, etc.?
I hosted the first episode of Saturday Live because there was always this feeling that we hadn't really had the same kind of coalition of talent in this country up to that point. There was a lot of alternative comedy going around, there were a lot of comedians doing the circuit, but there wasn't a coming together yet of people on television in a big way. And I think Channel 4 were willing to make a big splash. They already had the comic strip, they'd already had little forays into it, but they hadn't done a big statement. And Saturday Live was going to be their big statement.
Honestly, are we having a good time tonight or what? I love live television because I've done a lot of live television, right? It's my favourite medium. You might have seen the kind of thing I used to do. Yeah, this is the stuff. This beats potting around on the late breakfast show. This beats the two bloody Ronnies. This is what they want. Anarchy, yeah!
I had my own sketch show. And so my stuff slotted in very well into Saturday Live. I could do Theophilus P. Wildebeest, or I could sing or do a stand-up set or do characters. And then I could introduce Ben Elton.
Because you've got to be smart, haven't you? Down the disco, got to be smart, eh? Wear a little dinner jacket, dicky bow. All the bouncers in the dicky bows like to wear dicky bows, don't they? Dicky bow on a little bouncer. Why do they wear dicky bows, I wonder? I'll tell you why. It's because they're wrapped round dickheads, that's why.
Saturday Live was quite frightening.
Yeah, it was.
Did we perform the Saturday Live?
We certainly did, several times, in fact. But we were a bit out of our comfort zone there because we were kind of sketch actors.
Yeah.
And it was a bit of a home of stand-ups. I know that they wanted it to be the home of all sorts of comedy. But it was, I think we felt pretty awkward on, actually.
Yes, I've located it. I've located it.
Count them.
Yes.
There should be 2 of them there.
There should be 2?
Yes, there should be 2 of them there. We've paid for 2.
We've paid for 2. Raw or sex, what are you?
Pissed.
Oh dear, Mrs. Jackson, I think we're going to have some trouble. I've got raw here.
Right, so we're looking for sex.
We're looking for sex.
The purpose, really, in a way, of the show was you can only make a show like that when there's a big swirl of new talent coming through, and there was at that time, quite clearly. So a lot of people got their first, even in that first season. Jessie Lawrence made her first big appearance on there. The Joan Collins fan club, who subsequently was Julian Clary.
There's nothing I like more than a warm hand upon my entrance.
So there were a lot of good acts around.
On your feet, then. Well, I am on my feet. No, this is comedy, Hugh. Always on the balls of your feet for comedy. Always on the balls for comedy. That's very important. Good. All right.
Now, because on the first series of Saturday Live, when we didn't have a regular host, but we also didn't really have a regular sketch team, it didn't bed down. There wasn't a feeling, here's the group of people who are always going to do great stuff for us.
It didn't cohere.
It never had an identity. When you hosted it, it kind of worked. Sometimes it didn't.
But the fact of the matter is, because they didn't have that core unit of performers who were there every week, it struggled a bit. And the best thing was, I'm going to pay you a compliment, when you became the host, it all started to make sense. If I could say that, because it needed something to regulate it. It needed something to make it come together. And once everybody was united around you, then it made sense. Because suddenly we knew we were going to get 2 sets from you, we were going to get you pumping up the audience and getting them into the next bit, and it was all great. It needed that. It needed something to give it an identity.
I became the host of Saturday Live in 1986, which made me very high profile for a while and cemented forever my image in the public mind, mostly thanks to a few Thatch gags and a sparkly suit.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the brand new series of Saturday Live. We think we're going to have a very good time. You can shut your face for a start. It's a no. Listen, we got a new set. We got a new bunch of regulars. I got a new suit. I hope you realise I made an effort with the suit. This story behind this suit, it used to be a quiet little business number, but I did a gig at Sizewell B Power Station. It's been glowing ever since. With a no nukes gag. Very nice. Everything's we're trendy for 4 weeks. Very nice. I'll keep my credibility going for a while.
Was I a fan of Ben in the early days? He was quite annoying. He won't mind me saying that, I don't think. A, because he was really successful. B, he's just fairly prolific. But C, the sparkly jacket pulled up to the elbows. That didn't help. The red tie. Didn't look that dissimilar to Cliff Richard, which didn't help.
The other thing you're not allowed to say on telly is any government secrets. Since the special branch raided the BBC, you're not allowed to tell any government secrets, so we won't be telling you the true unemployment figures. Fair enough, so no problem with that. But if politics goes down well, no it doesn't. Let's get back to the stuff about drinking.
The way that Ben delivered his lines and the way that Ben interacted with the audience, especially the studio audience, you know, they were all part of it. And so you had to include the audience in the way that it was shot. That made you at home feel that you were part of the act too.
He was brilliant at it. And he was also always, meticulously generous to the acts that he introduced, even if they died a death. He didn't mock them. He just held it all together.
We don't hold back on this programme. There's some very bad language on telly the other day, but it didn't matter, because it was in French. Jacques Chirac, the Prime Minister of France, was at the EEC, and he said a rude word to Mrs Thatch. Said something like, couillon. Couillon. Now, we have had it translated, and we can't tell you what it is, because it's rude. All we can say is they normally come in pairs. Mrs Thatch doesn't have any, but she's got the country by them. That's all we can say.
If you're going through a politically interesting time, which the Margaret Thatcher era was, and you're commenting on it, then inevitably you're tagged as a political comedian. It was all, she's the witch, the devil personified. So that gave him a focus, and it also gave that type of comedy quite a focus. So to that extent, he was very important in that movement. But since he's presenting this programme, he can make that point himself.
We've got a new word at the moment. It's called reform. That's the word. Reform is a new word. We're not smashing the trade unions, we're reforming them. So it's going to be a lovely new defence in court, isn't it? Hey, honest, Your Honour, I didn't mug him, I just reformed him.
Ben's always been seen as this sort of highly political commentator, and there's no question he was. I mean, he had very, very clear socio-political beliefs and still does have, Ben. But even then, he did a lot less politics than people think. He did a lot more than anybody else because nobody else was doing any at all. You know, the perception of the alternative comics as a big kind of anti-Thatcherite movement just isn't true. They were doing knob and fart jokes and throwing up on each other. So it was much more punk than it was political. And Ben mills his comedy from his everyday experience.
Underneath the ice monster in my fridge lives the teacup. The teacup full of brown chickeny stuff. Now why is there a teacup in my kitchen, in my fridge, full of brown chickeny stuff? I will tell you, ladies and gentlemen, it's because 3 years ago, when I cooked the last meal I ever cooked, it was chicken, and in a moment of insane and irrational optimism, with no hope of success, I thought, oh, I'll collect them chickeny bits in a teacup. They'll make soup tomorrow. I'll put them in the fridge, and they are still there.
Just as the young ones seem to mark a generational shift in the world of sitcoms, Saturday Live did the same in variety. And as with any generational shift, there were figures on both sides of the divide. After the break, I'll be talking to a bloke who was the wild young man of comedy when I was still in short trousers.
Ladies and gentlemen, I feel it's time to deal with a certain debate that seems to rage in the press. They want to know the difference between alternative and mainstream comedy. Now, I don't understand, but I reckon as a mainstream comedian, I have a duty to look at this alternative business and see what it's about.
The success of Saturday Live put us alternative comedians very much in the public eye and brought us to the attention of the more established comics like Jimmy Tarbuck. Resentment grew on both sides of the great comedy divide, and it seemed like the battle lines were drawn.
There was a sense of us and them. There was a sense that we were the new comedians and there was the old school. And it was unusual for the two to meet.
Hey, old Tommy comes on, there he goes. Good old Tommy, winking a smile for every honest English person. On he comes, doing that great gag about having a gap between his teeth. Fantastic stuff, Tommy. Brilliant material, well worth 25 years at the top of the showbiz golfing tree.
We made Saturday Live at the London Weekend Television Studios, the same place Jimmy Tarbuck was making a show. Now, he'd had a go at me publicly, and I'd had a go at him. And one day, we bumped into each other in the lift. We rode 6 floors and never exchanged a word. I think it's time we put that right. Jimmy Tarbuck started his career as a stand-up comic back in the early 60s. He had his own TV show by 1965, and in the 80s was very much ITV's king of light entertainment. He never seemed to be off the telly.
Hey, thank you. Thank you very much, and welcome to a live show once again on the telly. And do we have a show for you tonight? Do we?
So, Jimmy, what an honour, a comedy summit. Looking back to the mid-80s...
Young Ben, yes, go on.
Well, there was famously a little bit of needle between what might be described as the alternative generation and what might be described as the venerable old guard. Do you remember that? Do you have any sort of memories of that?
I remember you coming on, and I always used to think about you personally. You work too quick. Bang, 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 bang. I think slow down so I can really hear the gags. And you were a great political... commentator at the time, more of that than a comedian, I thought. And
not funny is what you're trying to say,
No, I
Jimmy.
didn't say not funny. Some lines, no, some of the lines were very, but you did work at 100 mile an hour. Now, I don't know who said the alternative is that not funny. It certainly was, there's no trace of me saying that.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I have a memory of us meeting, because there was definitely a little bit public needle. I recall, now it may, who can be, I recall the quote, Jimmy Tarbuck has said Ben Elton's as funny as tax, which I thought was a funny line.
I wish I'd have said that. It's a great line.
And, of course, I did a couple of things about Tarbs myself. And is this... Now, there's another misquote that I'm going to hurl in your face. It may be a misquote. Actually, may have said it. Just around the time we were coming through, it was said in the papers that you'd said that no comic can really be any good until they're about 40. And coincidentally, you were round about 40 at this time. Do you recall this theory at all?
Do.
You do, so you stand by that one.
Well, yes. You can be a cheeky personality.
As you were, absolutely, in front of that wall in the 60s.
But when you're 40, you've seen a lot, done a lot, and now you can throw the gags, pull one back, do the next one. And that was only her sister, Bum, who I happened to know at the time, but we won't go... Whatever it was. And you suddenly, you can have command of it.
I've got a great surprise for you now, just about one of the country's and the world's finest stand-up comedians. Will you please welcome Jimmy Tarbuck? Thank you. That's what I like, a brainwashed audience.
The biggest shows that I've had in my time was hosting the Palladium show. Then I had the series, then I had a series at the BBC, then I had 15 years with Winner Take All, which was just wonderful to go and do a series in 10 days up at Yorkshire.
And then have a constant TV presence.
And then it was just lovely.
Please, for the last time, welcome Linda Lee and lovely Mari. Come on, girls. Yes. Such lovely dresses you've nearly got on now. Anyway, have you enjoyed the last 14 weeks, Mari?
It's been great.
Yes, and Linda?
It's been smashing.
Hey, you've had lots of letters, haven't you?
It's been great, yes.
All asking the same thing. Yes, well...
Winner Takes All was a weekly game show which regularly got millions of viewers over on ITV.
And here's your host, Jimmy Tarbuck.
It ran for 11 years and cemented Tarby's position in the very upper echelons of TV land. But showbiz is a fickle mistress, and as everyone discovers in the end, you can't be king forever.
Do you recall a point at which you felt out of fashion in terms of the establishment? In terms of, not in terms of the punters you would see when you weren't on stage, but, you know, the media vibe, the general feel, television executives.
Oh, yes. If you think you're out of fashion, I was the king of the hill at London Weekend Television. They'd signed me, they'd done me this and all that.
I recall.
Then it all came to the end, and there was a little dispute in as much as they had to pay me for a series they couldn't do. Not my fault. They didn't have studio or airtime to do it. And so I got paid. Then I had to do a guest appearance at London Weekend. There was not a photo of me on the wall where it used to be everywhere. I went, oh, well, the king is dead.
Yeah.
Who's up there now?
In 1986, Rik, Aid, Nigel and I made a sitcom called Filthy Rich and Catflap, a kind of affectionate poke at the light entertainment we'd all grown up with. As with the young ones and Cliff Richard, Rick's character needed a hero, and as Tarby was the biggest thing in showbiz at the time, we gave him a starring role.
We're talking about Jimmy Tarbuck. A cheeky chap from the pool. Everybody's pal. A jolly gap-toothed scouser with a twinkle in his eye and a smile for every honest Englishman.
Look, if there's one thing I hate in British entertainment more than you, it's that vast army of ex-stand-up comics who did one half-funny gag on Sunday night at the London Palladium in the middle 60s and have made a fortune doing game shows ever since. Oh, good evening! And your name is Cynthia, and you'd like me to patronise and humiliate you on the off chance of winning a cheese maid. Cheeky chappies! More like complete and utter bastards, if you ask me.
Yes, I don't think anyone will be asking you, will they, Eddie?
When we did Filthy Rich and Catflap, of course, we found that we had a great big picture of you as the hero of the hero, and that's why you, as the elder statesman, were kind of lampooned by this fellow who basically wanted to be you. Do you remember seeing that great big photo of you in the middle of the set?
Remember, that got me so much street cred with my children's friends. You know, Mr. Tarbuck? I know. The boys are all friends of mine.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's fantastic.
Do you mind? I said, not at all. You know, I've got to say, the golf club, they say, they're taking the piss out of you. I said, no, they give me a retainer each week. I didn't know that. I can't publicise it. Shh.
You said we paid you.
Yeah,
brilliant.
I get a backhander.
Jimmy, what a great pleasure.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to see you.
Jimmy, what a great...
Thanks, Ben.
Lovely.
Tarby is just a simple jester. An honest broker from the Bank of Smiles. Why, I was only saying so to Marty Kane just now before her last trip to South Africa. So I'll thank you to keep your embittered communistic treason to yourself during tonight's intercourse with Tarby and friends.
I am not having intercourse with Tarby, and that's final.
Well, what a surprise! 4 minutes into the episode, and Eddie Catflap delivers the most tortuous old double entendre in history.
It was a great gag.
I've suffered from guilt about having Tarby's photo
on the wall in Filthy Rich Cat. I've always thought, God, we gave them such a battering.
I don't think you should feel bad about Tarby being part of the joke on Filthy Rich, because it wasn't an assault. There was a great deal of affection in what we were doing, which was deconstructing the sort of old showbiz values, which we'd grown up kind of loving and also being exasperated with.
I've invited Tarby, Lynchy, Parky, Brucey, Tommy O'Connery, and you and me. Have we sufficient comestibles?
Oh, I don't know about that, but here's the grub.
Good Lord, Eddie, how did you get so much meat in your trousers?
That's what all the girls say.
In 1983, I got a call from a man called Richard Curtis, whose name I knew from the writing credits of Not the 9 O'Clock News. He'd seen The Young Ones and enjoyed it and thought perhaps it would be a good idea if we worked together. Our first effort was to write a pilot sitcom for the pop group Madness, which sadly the BBC declined to commission, just showing that they made mistakes even then. Although in their defence, sitcom was a very crowded market.
In me, you see a worried man. Do not be deceived by my happy face. I am a worried man.
If René was worried about anything, it certainly wasn't his popularity. Hello Hello regularly got a mind-boggling 18 million viewers, and other residents of sitcom land fared just as well, including those brilliant Fools and Horses from Peckham and the Yellowcoats of Maplin's holiday camp.
Hello, campers.
Oh, and a sitcom about a 40-year-old bloke living with his mum, starring the wonderful Ronnie Corbett.
There was a lot of forgotten great sitcoms in the 80s. I think Sorry is a mini classic in a way, because Ronnie Corbett will always be associated with the two Ronnies, obviously, but I really liked Sorry. I thought it was really great. I thought he was a really great character as well, you know.
Just as I thought. A jumped-up little thing from nowhere.
What do you mean? I'm only a jumped-up little thing round here.
You know what I mean. What's her background?
Background? What do you want me to do? Take references?
Don't be impertinent.
Impertinent?
Language, Timothy.
Oh, shut up, Father.
Fair enough.
Richard Curtis and I had enjoyed working together on our failed Madness project, so next he asked me if I fancied joining him on a historical sitcom idea he'd previously been writing with Rowan Atkinson. Well, duh.
As it happens, the first series of Blackadder wasn't anything like as good as the subsequent series, and oddly enough, it seems to be more to do with, I think, with the fact that they spent too much money on the first series and made it too epic.
At this time, the BBC didn't want to do a second series. They felt the first series was unbelievably expensive, and they got very little, as it were, comic bang for their buck.
Oi, that's my horse!
The first series of the Blackadder hadn't been as big a success as everybody had hoped it would be. So when Richard and I started working together on it, we decided to change it radically by making it, in many ways, more traditional. Isn't that a funny thing? Well, we certainly hoped it would be.
Archie, what do you think of all this?
I must profess, madam, I am astonished that Blackadder could possibly have eyes for any other woman than yourself.
Good point, though slightly grovelly.
But when I fell in love, Mum, I didn't know she was a woman. I thought she was a boy.
Oh, of course, that makes it perfectly acceptable. You can be as extravagant and extraordinary as you like in comedy and as brilliant technically in your physical and verbal dexterity, but if the audience can't see the ball, it's meaningless, like a tennis match. You know what I mean? And comedy's the same. You have to focus. You have to know where to look and what's at stake at each moment. And Ben had a natural instinct for that, and he said, "Well, if we do do another Blackadder, I think it should be done like a sitcom in a set." Small set with a small number of characters, and don't worry about the extras and all the swords and all that. And so they came up with this idea for an Elizabethan Blackadder if you saw the sets, they're tiny.
Just tell me one thing. Is her nose as pretty as mine?
Oh, no, Mum.
Oh, God! Because otherwise I would have cut it off. And then you'd have had to marry someone without a nose, and that wouldn't be very nice, would it?
I mean, Blackadder, I still happily watch it now if I can't sleep. You know, it's always on somewhere. You know, somewhere in the world, there's a string quartet playing Eine kleine Nachtmusik, and somewhere in the world, Blackadder is showing. You know, and it will be show probably. It's the Fawlty Towers of its decade. You know, the timeless classics, utterly brilliant.
Ben and Richard were the perfect combination. Very hard to know, you know, who was, you know, writing which line, because each would start doing the kind of line the other would do. And you'd often say, I know that was you, Ben. You'd go, no, actually, that was Richard. Or you'd say, oh, that's a typical Richard line. You'd go, no, that was Ben. But generally speaking, yes, he brought an immense amount to it.
Take my hat at once, sir, unless you wish to feel my boot in your throat, and be quicker about it than you were with the door.
Yes, my lord.
I'm a duke, not a lord. Where are you trained? At Dago dancing class?
Well, I enjoyed playing the Duke of Wellington because it's always good to hit Hugh. Hugh takes a punch admirably well, and to shout and hit is a pleasant way to spend an evening.
Why, I hardly touched the man.
I think you hit him very hard.
Nonsense! That would have been a hard hit. I just hit him like that.
No, sir. A soft hit would be like this. Whereas you hit him like this.
One of the extraordinary treats of Blackadder every now and then was the arrival of Rik Mayall in his character of Flashheart.
It's me! Flash by name, Flash by nature. Hooray!
With Rik, it's just like Rik has burst out of himself in this extra way, you know, and it was just incredible, the energy that Rik brought. You could feel it. It was seismic. It was fantastic.
Thanks, bridesmaid. Like the beard. Gives me something to hang on to.
Do you remember us approaching you for Flashheart?
No, I don't, but I remember being thrilled to pieces. It was just fantastic. What a great part. And he wasn't on for long. He used to come on, steal the show, and then run away again.
That's
usually with a bird.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, the thing about great comic acting is it takes a script and it adds more. With Miranda Richardson on the Blackadder, Richard and I always said, you know, we thought we'd written quite a funny, crazy, dictatorial, mad child woman, but Miranda took it to a whole different level of insanity. And the same goes for Flashheart. I mean, Richard and I, you know, we knew we had a good role here. This was the ultimate crazy Errol Flynn shagrat, the historical superhero who just parachutes in. But it was, in a way, it was what we'd been doing. Flashheart was, again, our private joke.
Yes, going, woof,
yeah,
woof.
And we, you know, and just being, like, basically sexually excited the whole time and stupidly overconfident. Can you remember any of the great lines? Can you remember, for instance, the feminist joke?
I'm terrified of doing them because I'll probably get them wrong. So it's probably best for me to say, of course I can remember them better.
Hi, Flashheart here. Yeah. Cancel the state funeral, tell the king to stop blubbing. Flash is not dead. I simply ran out of juice. Yeah, and before all the girls start saying, oh, what's the point living anymore, I'm talking about petrol. Woof, woof!
Fortunately for me, Blackadder was a big success and was also considered quite radical at the time. After the break, I'll be looking at something even more radical for the time. An all-conquering, ratings-dominating comedy writer-performer who was also, shock horror, a woman.
One of the most interesting shifts that occurred in the 1980s was the rise of the female comedian. There'd always been funny British women, of course, but very few had ever been given the opportunity to write and produce their own material. With changing social attitudes, that gender imbalance began to level out. And for the first time, women who for so long had been the butt of the jokes were suddenly the people making them.
Hey, I'm meeting a man tonight. I'm going on a proper date. He's taking me to a creperie. We're going to creep in, have a crepe and creep out again. I haven't been on a proper date for years. I can't remember what you're supposed to do. You have to be right vivacious. When he asks you what you want to do, you have to say, I'm not bothered.
Well, of course, you did come through in the 70s, as we in the biz put it.
And how did that start? I mean, prior to New Faces, were you a professional? Were you a turn? Did you play the clubs?
I was a student. I was a student before I went on New Faces, and then while I was a student at Birmingham University, I went on local television, BBC from Pebble Mill, and I wrote songs to order for news programmes, and that was how I got my equity card.
Did you encounter sexism in the business in the 70s? Were you aware of discrimination or you know, having a different attitude coming and saying, I'm a woman, I'm funny?
I was never aware that there was any discrimination from being a woman, but that's what I would have said at the time, but looking back now, I think I was probably patronised more than perhaps an equivalent comic, a male comic, probably.
At one point early on, somebody had, either an agent or someone had said, you know, love the songs, let's see your pins. Is that true?
Oh, yeah, that was my agent. Yes. Yeah, let's see your pins.
Please tell us this. I mean, how your agent asked you to show him your
went to be interviewed by a new agent, and he said, "Yes, yes, darling. I love the songs and everything. You know, let's see your pins." And I sort of went, "Oh." He said, "It's very important, you know, darling, for panto."
And he wanted you to
show me your pins. Yeah.
And did you? Nah. And he's still good. Wasn't that great of him? Well, I mean, that is a pretty good story. I mean, you say you weren't aware of sexism, but looking back, I don't think that would be likely to happen now.
Hello, Marjorie. What's available holiday-wise for those of us who aren't going abroad this summer?
Hello, Joan. Well, believe it or not, but not every holidaymaker will be flying off to Marbella or Alicante with a suitcase full of velour leisure shorts singing Eviva España.
A lot of people would be looking for a reasonably priced package in this country.
That's right, Joan.
OK, so I don't have very much money, I'm single, I can't afford to go abroad, I don't make friends easily. What can I do?
Look, we had all this out in the wine bar.
As seen on TV was, you know, a watershed in comedy. I mean, it was a huge success. It managed to combine being ridiculously popularly successful with also a real feeling that this was clever stuff, this was pretty groundbreaking, new subject matter, and of course it was also two women. And you wrote the whole thing.
I wrote the whole thing in my house, and every sketch was on a piece of filing card. Then I laid all the filing cards on the carpet and did all the running order, which I still do. I think it's a good way to do running order. Then you can see the whole show. And I said, I'm going to have something that runs from week to week. So I'm going to have this thing called Acorn Antiques. It's going to run from week to week. And I just plotted it all out in my house.
Extraordinary.
And it worked.
And 53 change. Bye. Acorn Antiques, can I help you? Gainsborough's Blue Boy? Yes, I think we have it in mauve. I'll just check. Yes, we do. Shall I pop it under the counter for you? Not at all. Bye.
In Acorn Antiques was lovingly and brilliantly produced and directed. So you must have had to communicate your vision to people. I mean, do you remember doing that? Do you remember people having to come up to speed? Look, you know, yes, I want it to look crap.
Yeah, I did have to say I want it to look crap. I mean, once we said, you know, it's got to look a bit like Crossroads, then people, you know, jumped on board.
Oh, Mrs. O, can't you see we're busy? But this is important.
This is important.
Yes, this is important. I said that, didn't I?
Clifford was just about to ask me a very important question, Mrs. O. In that case, I'll wait outside.
So how did you happen upon the sublimeness that is Julie Walters?
Well, I met Julie Walters when I was 17, when I was auditioning for Manchester Poly, when I didn't get in, and she was already a first-year student, and she was showing people from room to room. And I was so nervous, I was just throwing up the whole time. And when I stopped throwing up at the end of the day, I looked up and there was this girl doing an impression of a nurse wheeling a commode down a hospital ward, because she'd used to be a nurse, Julie. And I thought she was the funniest person I've ever seen in my life.
Ready to order, sir? Madam?
Jane?
Yes, what's the soup of the day, please?
I'll just go and find out.
You have always collaborated with fantastic actors and actresses. And it makes me think it's pretty generous, because as writer, you could, of course, give yourself the best parts.
But why would you? Why would you? I mean, I never want to do that. In fact, you know, I'm hoping really not to do so much myself, just give things to other people.
No,
That's really, it's more enjoyable.
Yeah.
Sunday's viewing.
There seem to be a lot of things for Asians in the morning. Then there's a few sort of handicap things. Then at 5 o'clock, it's religion, when various bishops will be showing us their kitchens and telling us how God has helped them with the cooking and preparing of food generally. Then at 5:30, it's our very own quiz show, Snookered, with the very popular Ken Burrows. He's not very popular with me, but I suppose working-class people find him amusing.
Were you aware of yourself as a social observer? Did you ever sort of think that's what I do?
I just think of myself as an entertainer, that's all. You know, I've got as many ways as I can of entertaining people. And obviously, if you think you're a good observer, so does your audience have to be, otherwise they won't get what you're talking about. So we're all observant. All you're doing is pointing things out.
Let's do it do it while the mood is right. I'm feeling appealing, I really got an appetite. I'm on fire with desire, I could handle half the tenors in a male voice choir. Let's do it tonight.
Vic was a huge inspiration because she was doing it, and she was doing it fairly mainstream too. And she was huge and incredibly funny. Yeah, dead clever.
I'd rather watch the spinners on the television. I can't do it tonight.
I was a huge fan of Victoria Wood and Julie Walters and that whole thing of Wood and Walters and the characters and Celia Imrie and so on. So a lot of inspiring women.
The jokes were brilliantly constructed. She did material that all women would recognise about biscuits and doing the washing up and that sort of thing. And so consequently, everyone absolutely loved her because she wasn't in your face in the way that a lot of women in alternative comedy were, I suppose.
People still say to me, "Jo, you're not exactly anorexic, are you?" Well, I'm not so sure, because anorexic people look in the mirror and think they look fat. And so do I.
What a lot of women felt at the time was that in order to make an impact, they had to be worse than the blokes in terms of the swearing and the filth content. I mean, I certainly felt that, and I did a huge amount of filth, and it went down very well, so that was all right for me, really. But a lot of women kind of stayed in the kind of nice clubs, but I really wanted to break through to the bigger places and figuratively punch people in the face, as it were.
I read that book, Fat is a Feminist Issue, got a bit desperate halfway through, and ate it.
By the end of the decade, Jo Brand had emerged as a star. But there was another female act who'd been making noises all the way through the 80s, eventually landing their own TV series over on BBC Two.
Well, I loved French and Saunders when they got to the telly, because I think they're similar to Victoria Wood in a way, in the sense that they will do almost anything to get a laugh. You know, they will dress up and look completely hideous, which a lot of women kind of find a bit difficult to do, really, and I really admire that.
Well, here she comes. Here she comes. This is my one. 20 to 1 on her, Miss Finland. Oh, she's stacked. Begging for it, she is. She's bugging me for it. That's the one there. See, Miss Brazil. Oh, yeah. That's my girl. There you go, girl. Oh, I'll give her fulfillment, eh? I'll give her what? I could give her what? Oh, I'll give her
My favourite sketch of all time is the two blokes on the sofa. When I saw it on the television, I gobsmacked. It was so cruel and so accurate. And once you'd seen it, you could never forget it.
If you're a woman, you come across so many blokes like that in your life. I'm not saying all blokes like that, because I know they're not, but there's enough of them around for us all to recognise that really strongly. You know, some sort of massive, lardy, greasy, bald, middle-aged bloke that thinks he's the bee's knees and just thinks he can get any woman he wants.
Shoes! Yes, they are shoes! No, shoes off now. I don't want you spitting muck all over my carpet. Oh, no, don't
The very remarkable thing about doing your own television show when you're very young and you don't realise the sort of the power that you have, actually. I very quickly realised that if you wrote a prop, it would turn up on the set. So I decided to experiment by just writing chocolate into every single sketch we did. Do you remember?
Yeah.
A bowl of truffles. We'd say a bowl of expensive truffles are on the table. We never were going to use them, but we knew we'd take them home afterwards. I'm very sorry, people who had to pay for the BBC licence fee, because we did, and it wasn't always expensive truffles. Sometimes it was just, you know, yeah, just ordinary chocolate. But we did manage to write it into almost every set. Sometimes you'd just say, a bowl of chocolates are in the cupboard. And they'd turn up.
Hi, I'm here with Ben Elton, the supposed king of alternative comedy, or as some would have it, an offensive lefty with a political chip on his Anthony Price shoulder pad. So, Ben, why have you got such a downer on Mrs Thatcher?
You know you make me wanna shout.
French and Saunders have been a successful double act now for 30 years, continuing to dominate the comedy landscape and fly the flag for female comedy. Despite the doors to a more equal world opening in the 80s, it seems we still have to ask why there aren't that many women in comedy today.
I think things go in phases, and sometimes it's popular for a woman to be a stand-up comic, and sometimes they seem to divert into other areas. The other thing, I think, having done stand-up myself, that it's quite an odd thing to want to do anyway, and I think it's quite a male thing to want to dominate a big group of people and make them do something. And I think that it's not a thing that most women are drawn to.
But I think the reason they're not drawn to it is because of the environment that exists when you go on stage, which is reflective of the social environment in the...
I think that's true.
And there is without a doubt that there was a conscious effort in the 80s to move towards, frankly, a more civilised society, a more polite society, where we didn't tolerate, you know, racism and sexism, and people looked stupid if they just were sounded like a drunk yobbo. Now, sounding like a drunk yobbo is a sort of postmodern, ironic sort of pose, you know.
Yes.
And we're back to using the C word every other line.
It's a really harsh environment.
It is.
I think this club is a harsh environment, I thought, when I was in it. And also, we are older, so we are a bit more feeble. Whereas if we were 21, this is not the conversation we would be having, because we would be totally comfortable in that environment. But we've come from a different environment, and so we're not comfortable in it.
Well, I think it's really down to the fact that the efforts that were made to create, I guess, a more interesting comedy, a comedy where subject matter wasn't always abusive. I think a lot of that has been sort of, you know, sacrificed for easy laughs again, and I think that puts women in a very, very difficult position.
But I think in comedy, particularly at the moment, speaking as Thora Heard Mark II, I feel there's a very harsh environment, and I think the language is really strong, and it's very coarse. It's just there's a very coarse strand running through comedy at the minute, and it probably will change to something else. But I find a lot of I think, I can't watch that. I can't actually watch a sitcom where two people are shagging. I'd rather really hear some jokes.
Hello and welcome to our celebrity joke spot, and our celebrity joke today is Miss Dawn French telling the potato joke.
Yes, hello. Once upon a time, there was a country country bumpkin, and he went to visit his big city slicker cousin. And when he got there, he said, "Hey, how come you've got so many girlfriends and I've hardly got any?" And
potatoes.
Sorry?
Girl potatoes. It's about potatoes, the joke.
No, the potatoes don't come until much, much later.
There are really funny women, and more women should be having the chance to have their own show. I mean, I think the problem is there is a kind of standard school of thought, which is that if you've got one sketch show with a woman on, if you've got Katie Brand or you've got Morgana, you don't need any more. But nobody thinks like that about men in sketch shows, and I think that's not right at all.
You can have Mitchell and Webb and Armstrong and Miller virtually on the same night, and no one goes, "That's a bit odd, isn't it?"
So when the women are in the majority, then I think we've, then perhaps I think we might have influenced it a bit more. Not yet, though.
In the late 80s, money was king. Banking had become Britain's biggest industry, and Mrs Thatcher's privatisation policy meant that the man in the street could now also be a shareholder and buy a stake in any British industry you care to mention.
In America, the film Wall Street coined the immortal phrase, greed is good. And here in Britain, Harry Enfield created what, to my mind, remains one of the most perfect pieces of satirical social observation in the history of British comedy. It was 1988 and Thatch was bigger than ever. The unions were buggered and Britain was shifting from an industrial to a post-industrial society. Loads of money seemed to sum up the mood of the nation, or at least the mood of the ones with loads of money.
I went to see my accountant this week, didn't I? Yeah. He said to me, he said, "Oi, Sunbeam, you want to put your money into property?" So I bought a house, put all my money in it, didn't I? I don't live there, no. Not enough room. Too much money in it. It's all bust up, loads of money everywhere. This geezer come round, right? He knocks on the door, I open the door. He goes, "Excuse me, mate, well done, you just won the pools. Here's £1 million in cash." I go, "Sorry, mate, not enough room."
I think loads of money, and I am aware now that I'm going to really sound like a Guardian reader, but I don't care. But loads of money really chimed with the zeitgeist of the sort of 80s yuppie city boys who were just intent on making an absolute bloody fortune for themselves and not being ashamed of it, of just going, "Look at my wad."
Well, I had loads of money last week, but I spent it all up, didn't I? This is loads more money.
Loads of Money became an overnight star when he appeared on Channel 4's new alternative cabaret show, Friday Night Live, which was basically Saturday Live, but moved to a different day.
Hey, what's that? Bleeding fiver. Get out of here! I don't have fivers. What do you think I am? Poor bollocks. Loads of money.
We were on Highbury and Islington Station waiting for a train, and we were just sort of talking rubbish. And I remember at the time, Paul had an obsession with Melt It Down. And he'd just like go on, he'd go, "You see that track there, you want to melt that down. There's money in that. You take up all that track, rip up that train track." Yeah, just waiting for a train. Yeah, you melt it down, bosh, put it in a thing. Bish, bosh, in a smelter. Black & Decker smelter. Melt it down, there's money in that. You get loads of money for that. And then it became like the whole station, you know, you see those girders there, melt them down in the thing. It's like, just, stop going on about it. It's going on like, you know, waiting quarter of an hour. By the end of that quarter of an hour, there was loads of money in this and loads of money in that.
I mean, I never knew the Melt It Down thing, although I've talked to you about this before, but I mean, there's a crucial moment. I mean, the Melt It Down gag's great. I can absolutely see that. You hear people saying that sort of thing all the time, a lead on a roof, etc. Yeah. But there was a crucial point at which somebody made a brilliant decision, which was to give loads of money a job to make him a plasterer. Yeah. So how did that come about?
He was a plasterer because Paul was a plasterer.
I'm a plasterer, see? Bush, bush, shum, shum, dollop, dollop, lovely job, loads of money!
People worshipped him and thought he was a hero, when in fact he was supposed to be a satirical figure that exposed the hideousness of post-Big Bang Thatcherism.
I'm into politics, right? All you need to know about politics is that Mrs Thatcher done a lot of good for the country, but you wouldn't want to shag it. That's all.
It's kind of interesting to me as a woman, you know, to me, he just waved his wad like he had a massive, great cock, and all the boys went, yes.
When I get up in the morning, right, I'm in bed in the morning, I wake up, I go, "Morning, darling. Morning, love. Morning, darling. All right, love. Morning, darling. Yeah, morning, darling. Morning."
In the press, as usual, the kind of left-wing press were going, "Oh, Harry gave up loads of money because he's worried that the working classes liked it," or something. And it was like, no, I gave up because he was so two-dimensional. All he could talk about was having money and birds.
And you hardly would have, if you were worried about that, I don't think you would have made a single, which, as far as I recall, was not a charity single.
Pump up the football, pump up the football.
Sing a song of sixpence, a pocket full of dosh. Dibble, 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 bosh, bosh, bosh. Sing a song of sixpence, a pocket full of dosh. Dibble, 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 bosh, bosh, bosh. Loads of money! Loads of money! Loads of money!
One of Harry's most popular characters, aside from loads of money, of course, was Greek kebab shop owner Stavros.
Hello, everybody, peoples. Welcome. My name is Stavros, and this is my kebab shop, in case you don't know, because you're bloody thick or something.
Did you get a lot of stick for Stavros because you had the temerity to play someone culturally and ethnically not of your immediate ilk?
Yeah. No, I don't think so. Not really. It became very popular, but I think there was a bit of sort of, you know, in the right-on English press. Like the English... I mean, the Greeks loved it. I used to go and do sort of Greek evenings.
Did you?
Yeah.
What did you do at the Greek
I'd just go and
evening?
do my Stavros. Yeah, so I'd do a bit of that, innit? And they'd all laugh. I mean, I think it's so multicultural now that, you know, if you only say to people, right, you can only play a Jewish person if you're Jewish, or you can only play... You just kind of...
No, you'd be stuck,
You know, you just think, well, so I can't play a Northerner, and I can't play... So I've got to only play myself, you know. So where do you draw the line? And I don't draw the line. I just play anyone. Play anyone as long as you're nice about them. And Stavros wasn't horrible about the Greeks. He was just a commentator on the community.
Everybody in this country is speaking the deaf. It don't mean it's not prop. Like in Scotland, they all speak in Scottish, go, "Och, I don't know, my name Billy Connolly, wee farty poor jobby jobby." In Newcastle, they speak in Geordie, go, "Way out the man of it, the same pet technology." In Liverpool, they speak in Scouse, go, all right, I went to school with Paul McCartney, honest. In London, they speak in Cock, go, "Hello, Dirty Den, what you been up to? I'm leaving the series, and what about you? Yeah, I'm leaving too, so's Lofty, so's Dot. Go blind, hello, Miss Brahms, your hubby's a natter." We all got different acts. It don't mean we don't speak props.
A lot of the people I meet now go, "Oh, you were like a massive influence on me." You know, loads of people, it's great. They say, "Oh, you and Ben and blah, blah, blah." And, you know, they were obviously kids at the time. So, you know, apparently we're a big influence. But it's not like people sit in front of you taking notes. You know, they're at home watching telly, aren't they? So you don't notice what influence you've been. And certainly now, you know, they're... You know, obviously things have moved on, as they do with everything, and we're the dinosaurs, and quite right, you know. You kind of keep your head down and do your little thing and hope that it appeals to enough people.
So there we have it. That was my look at comedy in the 1980s. A decade which saw myself and a new breed of comedians start our careers in those two grubby part-time venues in London.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Before we do the next piece, I'd like to give you a little contortionism.
The Comedy Store is of course still going, albeit from a slightly more upmarket venue in Piccadilly. It still fills up every night with comedians hoping to make their mark on the world. Comedians which I hope we influenced back in the 1980s to get up and give it a go.
You know, this is comedy, Hugh. Always on the balls of your feet for comedy. Always on the balls for comedy. That's very important.
I haven't been on a proper date for years. I can't remember what you're supposed to do. You have to be right vivacious. When he asks you what you want to do, you have to say, "I'm not bothered."
I want to be remembered when I'm dead. I want books written about me. I want songs sung about me. And then hundreds of years from now, I want episodes from my life to be played out weekly at 9:30 by some great heroic actor of the age.
Well, I grew up watching stuff like Friday Night and Saturday Night Live, and probably The Young Ones and Comic Strip. They were the things that made me go, I'd like to be a comedian.
What are yo's lot looking at, you soft southern bastards?
I saw Harry Enfield do loads of money in Stavros and bugger all money, and I thought that's what I want to do. You know, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but that's what I want to do, characters.
It's funny, but being ill makes me lose my usual tolerant and easygoing approach to communal living.
With The Young Ones, when it came along, was like a blast of amazing energy. It was about vomit and snot and anarchy, and that was really exciting. That's the thing that really interests me in comedy, anyway.
You have to look out for me because I'm a bit nutty. Aren't I, everybody? A bit nutty.
Loved Rik, and that's all we did at school was be Rik, and just recite it like previous generations had done Python. We recited The Young Ones.
The government is about to start legislation to stop aerosols. Now, why are aerosols bad? Anagram for arsehole. Why are they bad? Because they break up the ozone layer.
It's probably the first time that comedy in itself became a career, actually, because before that you had the occasional stand-up, but you didn't really do it as a career. But I think, you know, the comedy club, the Comedy Store was opening up, It was just a feeling that comedy was a bit more relevant and younger.
I used to spend hours standing in front of the mirror practising to be an extra, you know, going...
The 80s were the most exciting because that was kind of, there was a sort of seismic change and there were programmes on telly that were for me.
There was a lot of great comedy in the 1980s, and of course also a lot of rubbish. Which is entirely subjective. But fashion and haircuts aside, the only real changes were in comic subject matter. For a brief period, comedians made a conscious effort to avoid getting laughs by massaging popular prejudice against women, for instance, or gays, ethnic minorities, the poor, the disabled. I think perhaps that self-censorship has largely disappeared again. Easy options are sometimes being taken, often in the name of being bravely and boldly and shockingly postmodern and ironic. Bashing down the barriers of political correctness, barriers which, to my mind, were only ever there for 5 minutes in the first place anyway, and which I never really saw as barriers, more as gateways to other interesting subject matter. Still, I can't complain. I'm still working, and I still love comedy. I love it now, I loved it when I was a kid, and I loved it in the 1980s. My name's Ben Elton. Good night.
Friday at 9, his other show's been cancelled, so he's come over to 4 instead, a chat show like no other, the Angelos Neil Epithemo Show. Next, let's get randomated.